We're going to talk about how the cervix opens during labour and makes space for the baby to get through. But first of all, I want you to think back to before you were pregnant, all that way back. Then your uterus or womb was about the size and shape of this pear. And if you just hold that low down on your bump, that's about where the womb is, and that's about the size it was before you started. And now, of course, it's grown to this size to take this lovely baby inside. So it's stretched and made space for your baby. And the cervix is the bit of the uterus at the end, the neck of the womb, that has to now stretch and open up to make space for your baby to get through and get born. I just want to do a little exercise. I'd like you to feel your nose and now feel your lip. And what's the difference?
Nose is a lot harder, lips softer.
And more stretchy.
Yeah.
Yes. And the cervix, which has to open to make space for your baby, starts out like your nose, firm and muscular. And if you could see it end on, it would look like a cotton reel, a circle with a little tiny hole in it. And that little tiny hole has to open right out to about 10 centimetres to get the baby through. So the first bit of labour, the first, perhaps third of labour, is about your body secreting hormones to help the cervix soften. So it changes from this texture to this soft, stretchy texture. Labour's frustrating sometimes for first-time mothers because it takes such a long time to go from this texture to this texture. And it's a bit like blowing up a balloon. When you first blow up the balloon, it's quite hard to get any air into it because it's quite firm. But actually, after a little while, once you've stretched it, you can blow much more easily. And the same thing happens with the cervix. It starts off slow, but as it gets softer and stretchier, it opens more easily. So now we're going to look at the baby inside the womb, and I've got a pair of leggings, stretchy leggings here, which is going to substitute for the womb. And we're going to pop the baby inside those. So here's the baby inside the uterus, all tucked up nice and safe. And then here's the cervix, which is like a neck, a tube to begin with. And the baby's in there, doesn't quite know where it's going because it can't see anything, but it's going to come out and be in your arms very soon. And so you have a contraction, and the contraction pulls on these muscles here and opens the cervix a little bit. And then when the contraction's finished, the cervix goes back a bit, but not quite as far as it was. So every contraction is opening the cervix a little bit, pulling it open, letting it go back, opening it with the next one, making a little bit more space, and then eventually the baby's head starts to come through the cervix. And so you're about halfway here, you're probably 4 centimetres. And then another contraction comes along and opens the cervix a bit more, and then when it stops it fades away and the cervix goes back a bit. And eventually the cervix gets to 10 centimetres, which is about the baby's ear level, and the baby's head can come right through the cervix. So that would be fully dilated, the end of the first stage of labour, and ready for the second stage where you can push the baby out. Now, occasionally you get a bit of the cervix that gets left behind, and that's called an anterior lip. And it's usually at the front or the anterior because by this stage the baby's well down into your pelvis and the head is up tight against the pubic bone. And it's easy for the cervix to get stuck there if you're lying down. And because it's like your lip, you'll know if you bruise your lip, it tends to swell. So if you push against an undilated cervix, it'll tend to cause it to swell, which is why your midwife will say, don't push. And she's waiting for that cervix to get out of the way so you're ready to push. And you can help it by changing your position. Stand up, go to the loo, walk around, or turn over onto all fours. Because what that does is it allows the baby's head to drop off the pubic bone, and once it's moved away from the pubic bone, it's much easier for the cervix to come back up. And then when you're fully dilated, the midwife will say, yes, you can push, but actually your body will tell you that you're ready to push. You'll have a very strong pushing urge, and that helps push the baby down. You lean forwards, you use your air in your lungs and your weight to help push the baby into the pelvis. So you'll have a contraction, and you might find you're making a lot of noise. A lot of women need to make a noise when they push, a bit like tennis players who grunt or weightlifters. So you lean forward and you go, and and you make this big grunting sound. You think, who's making that noise? And then you realise it's you. But with each contraction, the baby comes further and further down into the pelvis, and you can feel the birth canal opening, making space for the baby. With each contraction, it opens and then closes and then opens and then closes. And it may be that your labour partner says, oh, I can see the head, I can see the head. And at the peak of a contraction, they will be able to see the head. And you can reach down and feel the head, but it then closes up again when the contraction goes away. But eventually you get to the point where the head doesn't slip back anymore, and this is called crowning. And your tissues are all stretched to the maximum at this point. So they're stretched here and they're stretched here, and that's actually the point of greatest stretch, and you often get a very strong burning sensation here as you stretch. And your midwife might say, right, don't push, pant. Don't push or stop pushing. And it's because she wants you to pant the baby out to get the baby born gently. So you'll go and pant the baby out. And then the baby turns as he comes out, so then you can see the profile of your baby's face. So to get there, you've actually got to push really hard, but then you've got to be really gentle with that panting, and that can be difficult. But there's a little exercise you can do at home which will help prepare you for it. I'm just going to hold up a mirror so that you can see in the mirror. And you remember when you were children and you made faces at each other, just pull the sides of your lips with your fingers and make a face into the mirror until you feel that burning sensation on the edges. Yeah? You can feel it? Okay. That's just the sensation you get when the baby's head is crowning. And if you know what it is, you can relax and pant the baby out. If you don't know what it is, you go, oh, it's horrible, I don't want to do it. So if you practice a few times, you know, when you clean your teeth in the morning, just pull at the sides of the mouth. You'll really understand what that sensation is like and why the midwife is saying don't push, because it'll help protect your tissues, help prevent tearing, and it'll also ease your baby gently into the world so that you can then turn and see him.